San Francisco day. It doesn't even feel like San Francisco today. It's wonderful. So thanks for spending your afternoon with us rather than out there trying to get a tan. And thank you to the Atheist Advocates of San Francisco for asking me to give this talk. As Larry said, it's only the second time I've given this talk, but we felt like it was a good time to do some update because there have been some political changes in the state of California and elsewhere, and so we decided to give this talk again here in San Francisco this time. How many of you, just by show of hands, have actually heard of gay conversion therapy or something? Wow, okay, great. Cool. Well, thanks. It was pretty much everybody, I think. And I'll let you know also ahead of time, probably should already know this, there are some trigger warnings here, and we'll be showing some video clips and talking about this. So, sometimes in our audience we might have people who have actually gone through gay conversion therapy, or have a close loved one who has, and in case you need to know that, or if it's really emotional, what have you, we're not going to really pull any punches here because we can't. I should probably also let you know that this is a little more heavily video-laden talk than I would normally give if I were giving a lecture to my students or something. I try to keep the videos under a minute or two, but just to let you know, the reason I did that, even though it's not great pedagogy when you're teaching in a classroom, is because I think it's necessary for you to see these people, for you to see the suffering that goes on when people go through gay conversion therapy and become survivors, and also so you can see the faces of the enemy, so that you know who's out there doing this, and you can hear from their mouths, not from a quote I give you or from some handout, but you can hear them speaking the words so that you know what they have to say, and you can evaluate it as you need to. So let me get started with my talk. I thought long and hard about how I would start this talk, and I came with a lot of ideas. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And the first thing that came to mind was a quote from my mother. My mom's this tough old broad from Eastern Oklahoma, and every time she gives any kind of information to you that's a really good story, she starts out with the same 6 words, and those words are, "You ain't gonna believe this shit." And that's how I decided to start out today. But that's totally appropriate, so a little bit more professional way to start it out would be by giving you a quote from one of my favorite scientists, Charles Darwin. Here's what Darwin had to say that I'd like you to think about throughout this talk. He said, "Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. It is those who know little, not those who know much, who so positively assert that this or that problem will never be solved by science." And I see some nodding heads already. I think you already know that that's probably true in a number of areas, not just in evolution, but in society as well. So, gay conversion therapy is what we're talking about. I'm going to start out by giving you some definitions. Not that I think you don't know what these terms are, but just so you know what I mean when I say them, and so that we're all on the same page. I'm also going to talk to you about some common themes. I do that to sort of inoculate you against some of these messages, so that as I go through the talk, you'll recognize some of these things and see them for what they are and make them salient in your mind. We'll talk a little bit about history and the history of the treatment of gay people in humanity. We'll go back very far, thousands of years. And then we'll get to the meat of the matter, which is really 2 groups, the 2 biggest gay conversion groups in existence, Exodus International and NARTH, which is the National Association for Research and Therapy on Homosexuality. I'll talk about the cures that they offer. You notice I put that in scare quotes because I don't know if you were hoping to come here and get cured of your sexual orientation, but I have news for you. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to be or anybody else. And then I'll give you a positive note at the end and talk to you about what you and I can do, where we can go from here to actually make a difference. So there are lots of different ways to describe this. People call it gay conversion therapy. Sometimes they say gay to straight therapy, reparative therapy, which is rather vague. I'm not sure what they think they're preparing. And SOCI is the newest one, which stands for Sexual Orientation Change Efforts. So no matter what the moniker they use, they're basically talking about one thing. These are practices that seek to change one's sexual orientation, always from homosexual to heterosexual, never the reverse. So you might be wondering, what do they use? Well, of course, atheist group here, you probably already knew, pray the gay away is the popular one. If you just pray hard enough, pray to Jesus, he'll heal you, he'll make you attracted to the opposite sex. That's the idea of this. Conditional social support. The message there being, we will love you, and we will accept you if. And the if is the important part of what makes this dangerous. So rather than being unconditional social support, saying we love you regardless, and we'd like to help you, it's always conditioned or predicated upon one thing, which is you will become what we want you to become, or what we think you should be. And that's the dangerous part as well. Pseudotherapy, not real psychotherapy. Those of us who have actually been through some psychology classes, I've been through a few, and some practical classes. I'm not a therapist, I was terrible at it, but I know good therapy and bad therapy when I see it, and this is not psychotherapy. And lastly, and most darkly, behavior modification. I'll tell you about some of those and the dangers within them. I know you know what sexual orientation is, but just so we're all on the same path toward understanding, sexual orientation is an individual pattern of physical and emotional arousal toward other people. Now, that is not the same thing as saying behavior. Sexual behavior doesn't necessarily tell us a whole lot about a person's sexual orientation. I always tell my students, for instance, take nuns, right? Catholic nuns. They take a vow, they don't have sex, ostensibly. They used to use priests, and that gets us in a whole ball of wax. But nuns, they decided to be chaste. Is that the one? Or celibate. Yeah, so I don't know either, so I get you. But celibate, right? They don't have sex. So does that mean they're asexual? Is that their sexual orientation? Not necessarily. They could be heterosexual, they could be homosexual, they could be bisexual. You can't tell from a person's behavior. What about people who are sequestered in prison? If they're going to have sex, they're probably going to have sex with someone who's the same sex as them, because we have prisons for men and prisons for women. It does nothing to their sexual orientation. So we can't equate behavior with sexual orientation. We also don't want to equate identity or self-labeling. There are many people, even here in the United States, even right here in San Francisco, the so-called gay mecca of the United States of America, who claim, even to themselves, that they are a sexual orientation that they actually are not. So you can't just ask a person, what's your sexual orientation, and necessarily give the right answer, because to be loved and accepted, they often think that they have to give the answer that it's, heterosexual. And lastly, of course, gender identity. That's your sense of being male or female. That's a completely separate construct. So sexual orientation, in case you're wondering, the research shows unequivocally that it is biological, that it is inborn, not chosen. Like the Lady Gaga song says, I was born this way. So whatever your sexual orientation is, it's biological and it's not open to change. You will often see these themes throughout gay conversion therapy efforts, equating behavioral changes with changes in sexual orientation, equating identity, simply saying, as long as you call yourself heterosexual, then we know you've changed and this success has happened, therapy has worked. You'll also see another common theme, which is people who have gone through this, who claim to be ex-gay, who talk a lot about their terrible life history, drug and alcohol addiction, molestation as children, even offering themselves as sex toys and slaves, and things like this. Terrible, dark past that these folks have, which they then equate with the so-called gay lifestyle. So they will say, this is what it means to be homosexual, don't you want something else out of your life? So I'd like you to watch for these common themes throughout the talk, if you would. I subtitled this talk, You Make Me Sick. And that was not just me being tongue-in-cheek, it actually is true. When you engage in spreading the word about gay conversion therapy, you are actually making people sick. In a number of ways. Religious ideology, telling people that they're sinful, that they're demonic. They're actually people who tell gay individuals that they have a gay demon within them, and that's why they're attracted to same sex. So they're telling people, very devoutly religious people, that their God hates them, and that the only way that their God will love and accept them and they can make it into heaven is if they change and become heterosexual. The medical world is guilty of this as well. There's a long history in the medical world with some overlap in psychology as well, with people like Sigmund Freud, telling people that there's something medically wrong with them, and also doing research on what is the cause of homosexuality. We need to be careful of that in research. We should be saying, how does sexual orientation manifest? Not just making gay people look like they're the odd ones and that they're the sick ones, and we need to study them as if they're pathology. Gets codified in the laws, obviously. In the United States, we have certain laws that apply only to same-sex partners, only to homosexual men and women, the social attitudes, and all of this leads up to suicidal risk. Gay teens, especially, are at 4 to 5 times the risk for suicide attempts as heterosexual teens. This is an epidemic, no matter what anyone might tell you, and we're just scratching the surface, because the statistics we show are only the ones that we know about. And there probably are many other cases where we never will know why that young person committed suicide. Most people who attempt suicide do it before the age of 25, saying lesbian teens, it's really around the age of 15 or 16 on average that they try to kill themselves the first time. So we're talking about people's lives here, not just their private religious beliefs. But religion does play a role. Tongue in cheek, I say, scratch homophobe by the Christian. That's not always the case, but it often is the case that people who are devoutly religious do hold these ideas. You don't have to look very far to find anti-gay messages in the Christian Bible. In the Old Testament, the most popular ones are in Leviticus. Leviticus has a lot of other things in it too, like you're not allowed to eat shellfish and women are dirty. So these kinds of messages are the ones that, for the most part, people ignore because it's inconvenient for them to follow these rules. But when it comes to sexual orientation or people's sexual behavior, they want to apply those. You'll often hear people also say, but that's the Old Testament, Sheldon. That doesn't apply to you. Jesus came, right? So we wash our sins clean. Now it's a New Testament, a new message. Well, if you look in the New Testament, you'll find some of those messages as well, although Jesus never actually said anything, if he ever existed, about homosexuality. It is certainly true that they talk a lot about damnation and people having this really kind of homoerotic stuff too. If you read it, it's kind of a turn on about people having sexual relations with each other and being damned for it, and that you're supposed to damn them as well. So religious ideology does play a role. The Christian Bible has not always been around. Not a surprise to a group of atheists, I'm sure. For thousands and thousands of years before there were Christians, there were gay people. And this may be actually the oldest known depiction of a same-sex couple. This was found on a tomb in Egypt. A couple of men in the most intimate pose allowed by canonical Egyptian artwork 4,000 years ago. These gentlemen were named Nuhotep and Namkum. Nuhotep means bonded in life, and Namkum means bonded in death. These two men are in a very intimate pose, touching noses to each other. They're basically making out with each other. That's the Egyptian version of it 4,000 years ago. They had wives and they had heirs. But their wives and their sons and daughters are depicted in artwork only deeper into the tomb and in very minimal areas where you wouldn't automatically notice them. However, they're prominently displayed here. So we're not really sure who these guys were. We know they must have been important because they got a tomb, but we also know they were very, very close to each other and they actually did a gay couple. Here in North America, we haven't even always had these attitudes toward gender, sexuality, etc. This is probably the most famous Native American of the Zuni tribe. This person's name was Wewa. And Wewa lived life as a female, although Wewa was born male. Wewa took part in what all children in the Zuni tribe took part in. It's known as the basket and bow ceremony. So they decided that when you are young, you are ashno, and that means raw. But when you are an adult, past the age of puberty, you are chapin, which means cooked. And now we know who you are. So how do you determine who that person is? Well, you raise them up, and then you ask them. And so the way they ask them is they lay a basket and bow ceremonially in the middle of the tribe, and they're all watching. And the child, who's now past adolescence, goes and chooses one. And regardless of the assigned gender of that person chooses a basket, that person is female within the tribe. And that person takes part in everything that a female normally would, and is revered as a female, and possibly as a third spirit, a third gender within that tribe as well. If that person chooses the bow, that person goes on the hunt, engages in war, and takes on the male role. Now this may be a better example of gender identity differences, but what it shows is that hundreds of years before white people from Europe got to the Americas, people were dealing with these kinds of issues of gender and sexual orientation. Sadly, they were dealing with it much better than we do today in the 21st century. When Balboa first got here in the 1500s, he knew exactly how to deal with these people and their strange customs. He brought war dogs with him and had them ripped limb from limb. So this was the Western world's way of dealing with this, and basically eradicated this third gender in the same way that they eradicated pretty much all of the cultural norms within Native American tribes. When you and I think of modern-day treatment within society and gays, we probably go back to Sigmund Freud, arguably the most famous person involved in psychology. Freud, strangely, didn't have a whole lot to say on his own about sexual orientation. He got most of his ideas from this guy, who you probably never heard of, Richard von Krafft-Ebing, who wrote his magnum opus in 1886. It was called Psychopathia Sexualis. This was a man obsessed with sex. It was all about the sexuality. He considered all non-procreative sex to be wrong and dangerous to society. He saved most of his ire for things that he considered paresthesias. These are misdirected sexual desires. Things like pedophilia, sadomasochism, and homosexuality, of course. Those were all sort of his caboodle. They were the same thing to him. Freud took a lot of his early ideas from this man and from his book and from his so-called research. But later in his life, he kind of waxed wane on the issue. Freud got a very famous letter from a mother who said that she was concerned about the effeminacy of her son. She never quite said the word homosexual, and she was dancing all around it. And so Freud said to her, basically, and I'll paraphrase, what psychotherapy made you for your son, that's a different issue. The most concern should be towards happiness, and whether or not he changes shouldn't make any difference in that. He ended the letter by pointing out the fact that she couldn't even bring herself to write the word homosexual, and suggesting that she may actually benefit more than her son from psychoanalysis. So Freud actually urged that homosexual people not be segregated or treated any differently from mainstream society, even though at certain times in his life and in his work, he did suggest that homosexuality probably wasn't welcome. That was a long time ago. Everything started to change when this woman came along. And ladies, don't it always take a woman? She comes in and starts bringing some sense into it. The unfortunately named Evelyn Hooker studied sexuality. And she studied it differently than most people, probably because she had so many gay male friends. She was a friend to the Mattachine Society, and this in the United States was really arguably the first gay rights organization. It was in the 1950s. And she found that, unlike what she was reading in the research, men seemed perfectly normal, at least as normal as any of her other friends. So when she asked people who were psychotherapists, how do you know that gay men, for instance, are so abnormal? They would say, well, we have a lot of clients, they come in, they're pretty screwed up. And she said, what about the people who are your clients who are gay? Okay. And they said, oh, we don't know, we'll talk to them. And so she thought, well, this is ridiculous, right? So she decided to go out and do some research for the first time. And in the mid-1950s, you can imagine it was kind of tough, right? Finding gay men who were willing to take part in your research. You'd be incorrect, as I was. Actually, she had a lot of gay friends, and they were like, bring it on, do whatever you need to. So she did these psychological workups in her home, clandestinely, anonymously, putting code names on them. She actually had a much harder time finding exclusively heterosexual men to take part in the study. Interesting. So she then randomized these 60 psychological workups, and she took them to a panel of psychotherapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, and therapists. And she said, these are all anonymous. Half of them are gay men and half of them are heterosexual men. Find each. And they couldn't do it. In other words, there were equal amounts of pathologies and non-pathologies in the heterosexual and the homosexual subjects. So, she ended up publishing this a few years later, and this becomes a very, very important piece of research. Not that it didn't have its methodological concerns, for instance, 60 people isn't really all that many, but because it started a movement in a way within psychotherapy. And this paper would be used and cited over and over again later on by this Jew. This is arguably one of the most important people in the gay rights movement, especially within the field of psychotherapy. His name is Robert Spitzer, and he is a psychiatrist. And in 1973, he was the chair of the task force for the third edition of this very important book known as the DSM. This is the Bible of psychotherapy, if you will. It's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And it attempts to list all the known psychological disorders. So, by the third edition, we're now on the fifth, but by the third edition, they had this meeting, and he decided, based upon Evelyn Hooker's research and some subsequent research and some discussions with the Mattachine Society and other activists, homosexuality could not be considered a psychological disorder. And to great triumph, but also great controversy, he removed it. He took it out. This caused a firestorm, as you can imagine. It was a huge victory. Some of the headlines said, millions of gays cured overnight. Because basically it's no longer a disorder, right? But then there were lots of religious organizations and other anti-gay organizations years later, he publishes this in the Archives of Sexual Behavior in 2003. An article in which he claims to have found 200 gay men and lesbians who have succeeded in changing their sexual orientation. I had to read this name 2 or 3 times to convince myself this was actually Robert L. Spitzer who had written this. So, everyone got really upset about it. Of course, several anti-gay groups, especially focused on the family, you may have heard of them, they grabbed this, threw it on their website immediately and said, see, even the great Robert Spitzer agrees with us, it's choice. Spitzer, for his part, backpedaled immediately because he was getting all kinds of bad press. And Land Legal Defense was upset, the ACLU was upset, and all these different gay groups, GLAAD, etc. And so he gave a series of interviews during which he said, look, I didn't know they were going to use this research the way we're doing it. I wish they wouldn't. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, probably it wasn't good research. Well, that's kind of like closing the gate after the cow's let out, right? It doesn't really do a lot of good because, believe me, Focus on the Family doesn't put that statement on their website. So the people who go to Focus on the Family and these other websites, they'll only see this. They won't see the retraction, right? The retraction's always on page 80. This is headline news. So he's not actually stopped short of actually apologizing, but he did give a very important piece of information. Guess how they determined whether or not people had changed their sexual orientation? They asked them, exactly. And remember earlier we talked about identity and self-reporting. People are very, very biased, especially if they've been through some kind of gay conversion therapy and really want this to work. They're biased towards saying, yes, it worked. Absolutely. We actually have very clever ways of determining whether or not someone's sexual orientation has changed. For instance, we have a Klesmer graph, which is the thing that goes around the penis that measures girth and blood flow changes, and you can show images to people. And even if there's a slight erection, we'll know because it shows up on the computer. And you can do the same thing with the vagina, etc. I won't get too graphic with you, but it's better than asking, right? So all he did was ask people, this is shit research, I'm surprised it even got published, and the damage is done. And he's crucified. These are the 2 biggest, most successful, and most wealthy anti-gay organizations in the world. They are Exodus International and NARTH, which I told you earlier stands for the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality. Exodus is primarily a religious organization, motivating the body of Christ to believe, that sort of thing. Now it upsets me since I'm a non-believer and I'm not a Christian. I look at it from afar and say, it's terrible these people are having their religion turned around on them, abusing them, etc. The one that really gets my goat is NARTH, because I teach psychology for a living, and these people pretend to be psychologists. Now, it's not that they don't have degrees in psychology. It's not that they're not actually, really, probably in some ways well-educated. It's just that they get it wrong, and they're stepping into my territory. That really pisses me off. So let's look a little more deeply at these organizations. Exodus. Founded in 1976 by a handful of guys who were gay and didn't want to be gay anymore. That's an organization that says they seek to limit homosexual desire. That's somewhat vague. But the idea, of course, is that you're changing from homosexual to heterosexual. The 2 biggest founders are Michael Leslie and Gary Cooper. This organization kind of started as grassroots efforts, and then they eventually started getting more and more successful, doing lots of fundraising drives, and they make millions of dollars per year now. The primary source of curing people, originally was praying the gay away, they then started doing pseudo-counseling. Keeping in mind, by the way, anyone can use the word counselor or therapist, there's no law. You even got aromatherapists and things. You can say, here, smell this. Is your schizophrenia gone? Aromatherapy. Anyone can use the term therapy. It doesn't mean that it's a real therapy. If you say psychologist or psychiatrist, that's a legal issue. You could actually get in trouble for that, right? From the APA and from laws, state and local laws. But if you just say counseling, it could be anything, right? It could be religious counseling. It could be total nonsense that people make up and often do. So we're talking about pseudo-counseling. My favorite part, I shouldn't laugh at this, but it is laughable, is these all-male retreats that they go on. These are some of the most homoerotic things, some of the most sensual things you've ever seen. Nude massages and things to cure people of their homosexuality. I think it would do the grace and truth to a world impacted by homosexuality. They're never really clear on how exactly it gets impacted by homosexuality, but they do say that on their website. They've been very successful. I'm sorry you can't see that map, but you know the map of the world. They have 150 local chapters, 170 chapters worldwide. They've taken millions of dollars. And it basically was started by these two guys, Michael Bussey and Gary Cooper. They would travel around the country and eventually around the world as they got more successful, staying in hotel rooms, often together, leaving their wives, ex-gay wives, at home with their families. Apparently they traveled together a little bit too much, because 3 years later, here they are at their commitment ceremony. They fell in love, got divorces from their wives, amicably, thankfully, quit the program, and regularly speak out against it. Unfortunately, Gary Cooper has since passed away. Michael Bussey is still with us, and he regularly talks against Exodus, the monster he created. Here's a short video clip of him being asked, I think, one of the most important questions, which is, did you ever actually see anyone change?
I'm Michael Bussey. I'm one of the original co-founders of Exodus International. I left the program in 1979 and have since reconciled my spirituality and my sexuality. Now I'm a vocal critic of reparative therapy programs and of Exodus International.
When you were a leader at Exodus, did you ever have people report that they had changed? Did you believe that anyone was even changing?
I had many people report that they had changed or were changing. Not so much that they had changed in past tense, but they were in the process of change, that they were becoming more and more heterosexual, or that they were becoming, more often that they were becoming less and less homosexual. They were becoming sort of asexual. So I had people who claimed that they had changed. I never believed it. Never really believed it. Wanted to believe it, but I never really saw it happening. I never saw one of our members or other Exodus leaders or other Exodus members become heterosexual. So deep down I knew that it wasn't true.
But deep down he knew that it wasn't true, even when he was participating in the organization. So they had to get rid of him anyway, right? Because now he's gay again, and he's got a partner on, he can't have that. So he quit, did him a favor. He was replaced by a series of not that interesting presidents, but eventually this guy came along, John Paul. Boy, is he a piece of work. John Paul, another ex-gay, actually got even more well-known through Exodus than the originators of Michael Bussey and Gary Cooper. He actually ended up on the cover of Newsweek magazine back in the late 90s with his lovely ex-gay wife here in a series of articles, or sorry, a cover story they did called Gay for Life, ? Going straight, the uproar over sexual conversion. He had a terrible life. I mean, your heart has to go out to this poor guy. He was raised in a fundamentalist Christian household. He was living in a very conservative part of the country. Those are two things that make you at risk for suicide and depression if you're gay or lesbian, by the way, or transgender. He ended up moving out of his hometown. He would hang out at bars. He eventually became addicted to drugs and alcohol. He had no job prospects, so he ended up selling his body for money. He performed in drag under the name Candy and would do, pretty much anything that he could to survive. He considered at the time, that to be the gay lifestyle. So it's understandable, I'm sure you agree, that he would want to get away from that. Eventually, by hook and by crook, he ended up joining an evangelical Christian group, and they offered him gay conversion therapy through Exodus International. He eventually worked his way up to becoming their president, was elected for a 3-year term, served well, elected for a second 3-year term, and then ran into some problems. Because one evening, a man named Wayne Bezin, who runs an organization called Truth Wins Out, got a phone call from a friend who said, you need to get down to Mr. P's now. Mr. P's is a popular gay bar in Washington, D.C., downtown. He said, it's the middle of the night, I'm not going anywhere. And his friend said, yes you are, and bring a camera, you're not going to believe who's down here picking up on the bartender. It was John Paul. So, Desmond throws on his sweats, grabs a disposable camera that had only 3 shots left on it. Yeah, this was pretty iPhone, y'all. He runs down there as quickly as he can. He goes barging in and takes his first picture. Unfortunately, he was hit by the bodyguard because you can't take pictures in the skate bar. So he ended up taking a picture of the ceiling the first time. Damn, there goes one of the 3. Then, John Paul sees him, recognizes him, tries to run out the back. There's no back door. So he has to turn around and come back and run past him. He snaps one more shot, hits his feet. Damn it, there's 2 out of the 3. He's got 1 shot left. So he's running down the street, and he said, by this time I was so angry and desperate, I just started screaming at him. How dare you? Look what you've done to people. How dare you be in this bar, blah, blah, blah. This poor man runs away, and he took his last shot, and that's the shot he took. It ended up being the cover photo of Wayne Desmond's book on this subject, by the way. And I highly recommend that you buy anything by Wayne Desmond. I'll talk about that a little bit later. In some ways, I want to laugh at this, and I think you fool, you buffoon, and in other ways, I feel sorry for the guy. I hate to say it, but I do. Because this is a guy who really has been told by others that there's something wrong with him, and that he needs to change, and he can't quite bring himself to do it. At first, when he was asked about this, because it did it on the front page of every newspaper the next time, Washington Post, New Day, right? He said, I didn't know it was paper. I just went in there and had a drink, and I knew there were a lot of guys, but I didn't know. They didn't buy that, so Exodus said, try again. So he said, well, I went in to ask for directions. I was lost. They said, you've been to Washington a lot. We're not buying it. And a few weeks went by after seclusion. He came out of seclusion and said, I had a moment of weakness, and I know God forgives me, and I really do too. They didn't. So they fired him. And he was quickly replaced by this poor schlub. This is Alan Chambers, who is the current president of Exodus International, shown here with his lovely ex-gay wife. It becomes a thing, by the way, get used to it. Leslie, I believe is her name. And you may recognize him, actually. I don't normally watch anything by Oprah. I think she's a charlatan and she pushes a lot of bad ideas. But she has her own network now called OWN. And she hired Lisa Ling to do what's actually a wonderful series called Our America. So I strongly suggest that you watch that. They deal with a lot of important, interesting issues, including gay conversion therapy. Lisa Ling went and covered this topic and interviewed Alan Chambers. She asked him something I've never heard him ask before. And I'd like to show you another little video clip here, in which she asks him that question and he answers it.
So, what motivated the decision to stop reparative therapy?
The vast majority of people that I've met would say that there is some level of struggle or temptation or attraction that's resident there, whether it's a little or a lot. And I don't know whether someone can say that therapy changes that. You know, as I began to see and hear things that really disturbed and troubled me, I began to really share honestly within the membership of Exodus, hey, this is what I see going on. About 7 months ago, I was very, very clear with our leadership in saying, we're going to have to move away from this type of therapy because I just don't think that we can refer people to something that could be detrimental to them.
Alan, you've been married to Leslie for how many years?
Almost 15.
Almost 15, and you have 2 beautiful children.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say you're heterosexual?
I have to be honest and say, of course I have temptations. Of course I have attractions related to the same sex. But for over 15 years since I've been in relationship with Leslie, my attraction has been towards her. My devotion has been towards her. Someone asked me the other day, are you stuck in this marriage? I'm not stuck in a marriage. I chose this marriage. She is the object of my desire. She is the object of my affection. I wouldn't choose anything or anyone else but her. And so am I heterosexual? I don't know.
I do. Again, it's a little bit sad, right? Am I heterosexual? I don't know. That's the best he can do, seriously? And this is the man who's going to cure you. You know, this is the man who's going to make you heterosexual. He can't even say that he's heterosexual. So there are actually 3 series of these that we did on this. In the first one, they just covered XK therapy. In the second one, she goes back for an update, and as you heard there, he said, we're no longer going to be doing gay conversion therapy within Exodus International. It was a major thing. And then she asks him that very poignant question, boy, she's got balls of steel. Are you heterosexual? I don't know, is the answer. Wow. She also bravely went back to interview him a 3rd time. This time she didn't come alone. She took with her ex-gay therapy survivors and Michael Hussey. Wow. Yeah, the guy who started this whole mess. And she brought them in to sit down for 2 reasons. One of them is so that he could issue his statement. Alan Chambers could say his apology. As I'll tell you in a moment, is sort of a pseudo-apology, or at least his explanation of the change and what Exodus is going to be now. And also to give them a chance to confront the man who they feel is responsible for putting them through the worst experience of their life in many cases. So here's him being confronted by those folks.
So, I mean, we don't have a term. You're not ex-gay. What are you? Who's Exodus?
We're a Christian ministry.
That does what, though? Honestly, when I read your website, I don't understand what Exodus is anymore. In plain language,
Yeah.
I don't know what the ministry is. I mean, my cynical side would say it's the recloseting ministry. We cannot change you. We cannot give you a happy life, but we can help you get back into the closet more comfortably. I respectfully request that you give us a term or a definition.
Yeah, and I'm trying. There are people who are looking to live celibate lives. And there are small numbers of people like me who will get married. And so for that group of people, we're there. Not to tell them that change is possible or to wave the magic wand over them, but to provide a place of community for them.
No matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what you change, you're still selling that lie. And you know it. That's the worst thing. You know deep down inside, Alan, that it is still a bald-faced lie.
You know, each of the survivors here comes from a different level. Some of them are fresh out. Some of us have been surviving for 12 years, waiting for a moment to look at you and say, you are responsible, because you've had opportunities to see our wounds before and you've not done anything about it. And you say, there are people like us still out there? Absolutely there are. You can always prey on the vulnerable. There will always be vulnerable people. That's what cult leaders do.
I personally think, Alan, that you've gone through an evolution in your thinking, but that's not going to mean a whole lot unless you figure out some way to get that message to the rest of Exodus. Unless you take that personal evolution that you seem to be going through and make it operational as an organization, the organization needs to shut down. Shut down. Don't tweak it. Don't try to improve it. Shut it down.
So, shut it down, they said, and that's what the headlines said. The day after they made this announcement, you read all of the internet. Alan Chambers apologizes to the gay community. Exodus International was shut down. All the headlines said this. Neither of those things is true. First of all, his apology, if you go to the Exodus International website, you can read his apology. I'll paraphrase it for you. He says, I liken this to an incident I had when I was driving down the road one time, and I swatted a bee that was in my car, and accidentally caused a 3-car pileup in which people were hurt. I've hurt people in the past, and I regret that I played some role in that. That's not an apology. That's really strange, actually. What he's doing, in essence, is saying, well, there was this incident that happened, I happened to be involved in it, and I regret that I was involved in it. But it doesn't say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, here's what I'm going to do to change it. And by the way, if you go to their website, it's not shut down. The first thing you see is a fundraising page that allows you to make a financial contribution. The next thing you see is this. This is a rebranding, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a shutdown. Now, this is the only page that's available on their new website. It used to be called reducefear.org. They changed it pretty rapidly within a couple of months to Speak Love. So we don't know what they're going to be yet. You can sign up for updates if you want to. You better believe I did. Put in your email address and your name. They'll send you updates to find, so you can find out what they're going to be. In essence, they don't know what they're going to be. If you you want my personal and professional opinion, they need the money to keep coming in. So they're going to become something that's more palatable. They smell change on its way. They've seen Prop 8 struck down. They've seen DOMA, at least parts of it, struck down. They've seen gay and lesbian people in the military. They know change is afoot, and they're trying to stay one step ahead of it. So we'll see what they become. They say they're not going to do gay conversion therapy anymore. I have to take them at face value, but I don't really trust much of what these individuals say at all, to be honest with you. That's religion, right? That's people's private religious beliefs, but it becomes public in that they are involved in public policy. NARC pisses me off even more, because this is pseudo-therapy. This is about as therapeutic as Dr. Laura Schlesinger, a poor woman on the radio who claims to be a therapist and does nothing but make you feel terrible about your life, and tell women that they married men who beat them, and so they, in essence, deserve it. I'm paraphrasing again, but that's what I hear her say. She also called gay and lesbian people genetic errors a few years ago, and refused to apologize for that. So that's the kind of psychotherapy we're dealing with here, not real psychotherapy. NARC is headed up by this guy, Joseph Nicolosi. Now, I don't like to put a lot of words in here, but I want you to see his quote, because I actually agree with this quote. I just come to a different conclusion than Nicolosi did. Nicolosi says, the fact that so many men continue to feel dis-ease, as a disease, by their homosexuality can be explained in one of two ways. Either society and the Judeo-Christian ethic have coerced these individuals into thinking they have a problem, or the homosexual condition itself is inherently problematic. I agree. But I think it's the bold one. And he thinks it's the latter, right? So he's come to the wrong conclusion. The man is a trained psychotherapist, by the way. He does have a PhD in psychology. So this is not a person who just has some wacko ideas. It's someone who should know better. You may recognize this guy. He's a former board member of NARC. His name is George Rakers. George Rakers is a Southern Baptist minister, a psychologist, as I said, a former board member of NARC, and a NARC graduate. But the reason you probably know about him is because of this photograph of him with a gay male escort in an airport that he ordered off of rentboy.com. Within a matter of weeks, he was removed from the board of NARC. He, by the way, said, yeah, no idea rentboy.com was about sex. He rented this boy to carry his bags for him. See him carrying his bags there? Oh, wait, that's Rakers carrying his own bags. They spent 10 or 11 days in Europe traveling around, and when he was asked later on, this young man, so what's the deal? Were you hired to carry the bags or what? He said, no, we had sex. Rentboy.com, how do you think it is? You know? So they gave him nude massages and we had sex from time to time. And Rakers, then said, well, no, that's not actually the case. And we may have fooled around with him, but I was actually counseling him. Yeah, so this is the best NARC can give you, right? The board member received the Freud Award, which eventually, I think because of legal reasons, they had to change it and call it the President's Award. They weren't allowed to call it the Freud Award anymore. Yeah. So there it is. Now, speaking of Freud, these are the three big ones in psychology, as they say. The three big guys. Freud, Jung, and Adler. As you can see from these photographs, they lived a long time ago. And that's some really wacky ideas. There are two main fallacies that are used within NARC to argue that they're right and people like me in the field of psychology are wrong. They say, first of all, the big three were all anti-gay. As I said earlier, Freud wasn't exactly in the anti-gay camp. It's kind of nebulous about it. But even if that were true, that's an appeal to authority. Just because these people, these really important, really famous, powerful, rich people said so, that isn't necessarily true. They've been wrong about stuff before. Ladies Freud said the reason you turn out the way you do is you don't have a penis and you wish you did. It's called penis envy. Look it up. I didn't make it up, you did. Jung, his protege, the only actual science he ever did was one published study on astrology, and he found it quite good. He found it very useful in predicting the future. So there's all kinds of ideas that Freud, Adler, and Jung came up with that are wrong. Also, one of the things they say is, look, over a century of social science tells us the same thing. That homosexuality is a pathology, it's a sickness. That's called an appeal to antiquity. Just because something believed for a long time or comes from a long time ago, it must be true. That's logical fallacy, right? So we recognize this. I do this to make it salient for you, to inoculate you against what Nicolosi is about to say, very adamantly as an authority figure.
Not only is the APA changing now, but APA changed before 1973. We have to understand, if we're going to follow the words of the APA, then we have to consider that before 1973, homosexuality was always a disorder. Always a disorder. The three greats in psychology, Jung, Freud, and Adler, the three greats, all saw homosexuality as a disorder. And it has been consistently seen as a disorder until one day in 1973. What happened on that day? Was there a big scientific meeting? Was there an understanding of new evidence? No, there was no new evidence presented. Suddenly it was a political decision. And so in one day, 150 years of literature was wiped away.
This is the intellectual equivalent of taking your ball and going home. Because you don't like the way the other kids are playing. So you're saying, that's it? I'm not going to play with you guys anymore? Damn you APA, damn you other APA, the psychiatrist versus psychologist. I don't want to hear what you have to say. La, 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 la. And then he goes off and creates his own organization. The American Psychological Association has unequivocally stated, and this is a very, very rare thing. They don't like to put out dictums, and tell everyone how to do their stuff. They like to leave that up to well-meaning, well-educated people. But they say it is useless, it is wrong, and it is potentially harmful to do gay conversion therapy. So in essence, they're telling people you don't get to do it. So these folks are not affiliated with the American Psychological Association or the American Psychiatric Association. They just created their own association, which is actually pretty common. If you want to whack this example of someone trained by organizations like this, look no further than Richard Cohen. Richard Cohen is a very enthusiastic young man who has a very terrible history, bizarre history. He's the president of the International Healing Foundation, which he started, and he also popularized pooling therapy of bioenergetics. I have a video of him doing this. It's beyond bizarre. He lived his life as a conflicted gay man. He was raised Jewish by an alcoholic and abusive father. Again, you can see the same pattern, right? Terrible life, addicted to drugs and alcohol. He plays up the gay lifestyle, wants to get away from it. So how does he get away from it? He joins the Moonies. So, once he's involved with the Mooney organization, he then gets involved with the Wesleyan healing community, combines a lot of those ideas along with his psychotherapy training. He actually has a degree in psychology. He believes that he was healed his homosexuality through therapy and through Jesus' love, and that you can too. So I apologize for the quality of this little video I'm about to show you. It's apparently the only one in existence. So even though it was taken off of YouTube and it's a little sort of VHS scratchy, I think you'll get the point.
Say hi to TV Land.
Hi.
How long have you been married? 23,000 years.
So simple science demonstrates that opposites attract. If you have a positive charge and a negative charge, I have actually magnets in the garage. They look
We have a
really
south
good. And a north. And a north and a south, what's going to happen?
Opposites attract.
They love each other. They love it, baby. They love it. Okay, let's flip this around. We got two north and two south. What's going to happen?
Repel.
Wah, 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 wah. You know that. They just can't do it. Okay, so why is a guy attracted to a guy? If opposites attract, it means he doesn't feel his guyness. He's looking to complete himself. If he felt masculine, he would say, ooh, hooking up with a guy? It's a non-sequential. But he's internally more feminine than masculine, so he needs that guy to complete him.
This is so far out of the mainstream, it's on Mars.
It's non-sexual. It establishes like parent-child relationship. So he didn't experience this growing up with his dad.
Rob, do you feel a sexual connection right now?
No, I don't. I feel very safe and very comforted, and it just feels wonderful.
Another technique, bioenergetics, designed to help clients release memories stored in the muscles, in this case by hitting a pillow with a tennis racket.
I was angry at my mother. So I started saying, Mom! 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 Why did you do that to me?
I think at this point, comment will be superfluous. This is not psychotherapy. This is really old ideas, the idea that somehow because you didn't bond with your father, you end up gay, right? Because you need to learn masculinity, and masculinity equates with heterosexuality, obviously, because there are no masculine gay men, right? Bullshit. Also, the idea that cathartically you can work problems out has been discredited since Freud was put in the casket. These ideas are wacko. They have nothing to do with psychotherapy or psychology at all. But people will borrow from actual psychology sometimes and use and abuse these methods, these well-meaning methods, against people as well. So his are strange and ineffective. These actually are damaging. This is where people actually can be psychologically and eventually physically harmed. Some of you may know about Pavlov and his salivating dogs and the ideas of classical conditioning, right? The idea that you have a neutral stimulus, you pair it up with some experience, and then eventually that neutral stimulus will create that experience as well, the emotional experience usually. The clearest example I can give you is a stroke called antabuse. Antabuse does absolutely nothing if you take it unless you drink alcohol. If you drink alcohol, you will become more violently physically ill than you've ever been in your life. You will projectile vomit for over an hour. And by the way, every person addicted to alcohol goes in and drinks anyway when you give them this stuff. So, the idea here being that eventually if you do this enough, even without the antabuse in your system, the presence of alcohol, the look, the smell, sometimes even the sound of ice clinking inside the glass will make you nauseous again, even without the drug in there. So it's called aversion therapy. It's controversial. It's only effective in the short term to get people to stop drinking. We also have one for nicotine, by the way. If you want to quit smoking, you can do it in-house, etc. So these ideas of aversion therapy have been taken and put into practice by a aversion therapist. The idea, of course, being show people images of homosexuality, male-to-male intimacy, female-to-female intimacy, and then do something terrible to them. So that in the future, they will have an aversion built up. Aversion is the opposite of attraction, right? No, an aversion built up, so that that makes them feel nauseous or pain or what have you, or drive them away from it. The young man I'm about to show you is a man named Sam Brenton. Sam Brenton was put through this by his parents. His parents were itinerant preachers. They believed that he probably was gay, as you'll hear in the story in a moment, and they put him in an in-house treatment program run by their church. He went through some of the most horrible and darkest periods of his life that he's still suffering the effects of today. So the video clip I'm about to show you is a little bit longer than I would ever show in a classroom environment, but as I was trying to parse it down and edit it out, it's just too rich with information, so I have to show you a little clip that goes a little bit over 5 minutes.
Sam Brenton, a graduate student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, shares his story of his experiences with aversion therapy to college campuses across the country.
So it all started back when I was living in Florida. We were a missionary family, Southern Baptist missionaries, living in Sanford, Florida, and a playboy had gotten onto the mission commune. Missionaries tend to live together because of how little we make. And all the other guys started getting interested in it, and I thought myself so holy and righteous that it just didn't affect me anymore. So I went to my parents. I talked to them every day, all day. I was homeschooled for most of my life, so for me, telling them everything seemed absolutely normal. And I looked at my dad and I said, I didn't have those feelings, like all proud and high and mighty. I said, but to be honest, sometimes I have those feelings when I think about Dale. Dale was my best friend at that point. Dale was a male. I remember my dad's face dropping. I remember him turning bright red. I remember him coming toward me, and I remember his arms coming up. And then the next thing I remember is waking up in the emergency room. It's an emergency room for the mission commune, so of course I'd fallen down the stairs. And I would fall down the stairs quite a few more times in the next month. I pretty much started turning into a pile of bruises. I was really, really scared. I didn't understand what was going on because at this point I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. I thought that I was supposed to tell them what was actually going on because they were my parents. They were supposed to protect me. And that wasn't quite how it was turning out. I was getting very, very scared. My mom stepped in and said, okay, this isn't working. Let's try therapy. I looked in this like well-lit room and I'm like, this is going to be so much better. I can't wait to start this. And we walked into his back office. I said bye to my mom. And we walked into his office. I sat down on a couch a little bit bigger than this. And he closed the door and said, Sam, you're the last one left. The government finds gay children and kills them. And somehow you got through. We think it might have been God. We don't know what it was. But if the government finds out what we're doing here, they will kill you. I'm now terrified thinking that, first of all, I've never talked to another gay person because I don't really understand what's going on in my life. So of course I feel alone. And that mental terror is unfathomable. It's a really great way of keeping you in the closet as well. We then moved into my faith. I'm a missionary kid. I talk to God every single day. And the next thing that I'm told is the pray the gay away practice, which is becoming very, very popular. That God hates me. And if I just pray hard enough, maybe I'll be able to change. At this point, my mom says that I was in tears at the dinner table and laying next to my bed, just sobbing, praying to God not to hate me, to come back, that I promised I would be good if he would just help me change. I couldn't turn it off inside, and I knew that he would be powerful enough to. Then we moved into, this is all forms of mental torture if you ask me, but we moved into the last part of that mental section, which was my health. I was told that I had AIDS, that was why the government killed them as children, was because if they found the gay men were bringing the AIDS population, bringing AIDS into the population. So I was going to die within a few years. I'm now horrified that, one, I'm the only one left. Two, the God that loved me all my entire life hated me. And three, I'm dying of a disease. At this point, I had my first suicide attempt. It wouldn't be the last time, but it's a scary first time. I'd be put in a chair, similar to, no, not similar to this, it was much harder and not nearly as comfortable. But I'd be put into a chair, bands would be put over my wrists, and then blocks of ice would be put on my hands. And then pictures of men touching other men would be shown to me, so I would associate the cold, not necessarily really painful, but cold pain and separation and not wanting it with touching another man. That was happened for a little bit of time. We still did all the prayers. We still talked about the verses and the government secrets and how I was working on changing. We moved into the next section, which was the similar setup, except for instead of ice being put on my hands, bands of wire were put around my hands. And pretty much, like I like to tell my fellow engineers, it's like an electric coil. All it was that if a picture of a man and a woman were shown to me, nothing would happen. But if a picture of a man were shown to me, just touching again, nothing sexual at this point, just touching, hugging or shaking hands, the bands would be turned on and heated. So it's like, I try to explain to people, it's not like I was being burned, it's like when you touch a pan on the stove. It doesn't necessarily burn you because it's so short, but it still hurts like hell. That was the factor that pretty much has started a lot of my repercussions. So I stopped hugging my dad. I know if a boy or a man would come up to me on the street to like shake my hand or something, because we were still living a normal life, I would move back and run to my mom. We moved into the months of hell next. And months of hell were similarly put into a chair. Midriff also secured and legs secured, and needles were stuck into the fingers with wires attached. And if a picture of a sexual encounter between a man and a man were shown to me, I'd be shocked. It's the part of the aversion therapy that I've forgiven my parents a lot about it, but I still don't understand it. How a mom can hear her child screaming in the room next to her and not run in and stop it. Obviously, it didn't quite work. And I would later, when I would go to Kansas State University, I learned that there was such a thing as a gay community. I started Googling because I was so worried that if I even Googled the word gay, that the government would track that. The problem is the repercussions. The aversion therapy has a lot of negative repercussions that last for the rest of my life. So for me, every single time I have to touch another man, I have to prepare myself for the electric shock. I hug people, they don't actually hug me. Even if you try to hug me, I'm actually associating it as I'm hugging you, because I can't imagine how angry I would be at the pain that you're causing me, and so I've decided that I am causing myself pain. And it's this concept that I still feel the shock every single time there's a touch. That's not something that a person wants to have to deal with. We move forward. There's a lot of suicidal tendencies. I have to, whenever I move to an area, know exactly where the hospital is and have my friends on speed dial, and the Trevor Project number is listed all over my apartment, because as soon as I start feeling the feelings, I start calling. The repercussions are horrifying, with the results being non-existent. Doesn't seem like a good program to me. Pretty much looks like torture. My goal is very simple. It is to make any conversion therapy for a person under the age of 18 child abuse.
So you can see what through terrible work. As a young man, even worse, being put in this situation by his parents. What he didn't tell you is the first time he tried to commit suicide, he actually did it from attempting to jump from the building. He had gone to his younger sister and told her, basically telling her goodbye, and she became so concerned that he might actually be doing something drastic, she went and told her parents. And their mother came, found him as he was standing on the ledge, ready to jump. What she said to him was, well, if you just change, we love you again. Her teenage son is standing on a ledge, ready to kill himself. That's the best the woman could do. So, what he says at the end is, his goal in giving this talk, and I've actually become Facebook friends with him and invited him to take part in my speaker series in the future. We're going to try to work that out, so we blast him on the interwebs, as they say. His goal was to get the laws changed. He actually has been very successful. He's a graduate student at MIT, majoring in nuclear engineering. He speaks Mandarin, Chinese, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. Amazingly, he's still a Christian, so he managed to do some kind of cognitive dissonance thing there with his parents' beliefs and still come out as a believer. And he's happy to friend you on Facebook. He does a lot about nuclear engineering, which I don't understand, but he will friend you on Facebook. He actually, in some ways, is lucky. He's lucky in that he got away from it, that he's been able to get an education, become very successful, find himself a life partner as well. They're very happy together, getting married. And even though he still suffers the effects, as you heard, most likely those will become minimal as time goes on, especially if he gets psychotherapy. He'll have to reconcile with his parents, etc. But it's a process. I say he got lucky. There have been people who haven't survived this process. This is a young man who at the age of 15 he was raped and biased. His parents noted that he was rather effeminate, and he probably was gay. So they enrolled him in a training camp called the Echo Wild Game Rangers Camp in South Africa. This is one of those going to toughen you up and make a man out of you kind of camps, right? Where he wants to hard labor, it's very militaristic. 2.5 months later, this is what was returned to his parents. He had burns all over his body, which turned out to be from a cattle claw. He was malnourished. He was dehydrated. He had broken bones, some of them several times broken and ended incorrectly. He languished in the hospital for 4.5 weeks and died of his injuries. He was chained to his bed for most of those 2.5 months, given no food or water, and forced to eat his own fecal matter. All in an effort to make a man out of him. This, by the way, was not the first time someone had died at the hands of this monster, Alex DeCoker, who runs the two young men, an 18-year-old and 19-year-old, had died only a couple years earlier. Originally, they were deemed heart attacks. An 18-year-old and 19-year-old man. Right. So, because of later investigations, they found signs of strangulation, and now they're investigating this organization as a paramilitary fundamentalist Christian group. Something should include the men because this is the camp flag. It looks a little familiar, right? It's missing a few R's. Yeah, so this poor young man, it cost him his life. His parents are now very upset and are suing the camp that they sent their son to, all in an effort to make him seem less maybe, if not become heterosexual. So the good news out of this is we have had some positive changes. Some of you may know that there was a very important law that got passed recently in the state of California. It was introduced by Senator Liu, and this bill did pass and become law in the state of California. I would like to point out, however, we shouldn't trumpet success too loudly, because if you look closely at this law, what it says is that sexual orientation change efforts are now made illegal in one instance. Someone under the age of 18, and if it's a licensed mental health provider. In other words, if you're over the age of 18, you can still do it to people. And if you are not licensed, you can still do it to kids. So, as you've seen before, a lot of these folks are not licensed in any way. These are just religious leaders who call it counseling. It's not really counseling, and you can't touch that. The identical law that just passed in New Jersey that Chris Christie signed is almost identical to this law and has the same exception. So this is not going far enough. This is success. This is not the end of the road by any means. Speaking of politics, some of you may already know that there are a lot of very important people, very wealthy people in politics who do support sexual orientation change effort groups. For instance, Mitt Romney gave at least $35,000 in 1 year alone to this group called the Massachusetts Family Institute, who primarily engage in trying to change people from homosexual to heterosexual. This is another woman you'll recognize. Michelle Bachmann and her clearly, absolutely not gay husband, Marcus.
Oh yeah.
They run Bachman and Associates, which is a Christian counseling center. And by the way, she's spoken out numerous times against Medicaid, and she thinks it's a welfare program, and she's against it, but she didn't have a problem accepting $137,000 of that Medicaid money, your and my tax dollars, to do this pseudo-therapy on people. They claim publicly that they do not engage in sexual orientation change efforts, that they've never said anything against gay people, etc. However, you know there are these little cameras you can have on your body, and you can walk into places and they don't know they're being recorded, and that often tells a bit of truth, doesn't it? So that's exactly what happened to Bachman Associates. Wayne Bezin and his group Truth Wins Out, they sent in a young man claiming to be gay and Christian and saying he wanted to be cured, and he had a couple of hidden cameras on him.
Long before she became a presidential candidate, Michelle Bachmann was well known to the religious right. But now as a national figure, we're learning a lot more about her and her husband and the business that has been the family's principal source of income. On the campaign trail, Michelle Bachmann tells supporters her husband Marcus has been the key to their 33 years of happy marriage.
I have a very big advantage because Marcus has his PhD in counseling and he's a marriage counselor.
But Dr. Bachmann's brand of counseling is highly controversial and could become a campaign issue.
Here's my husband, Dr. Marcus Bachmann.
Operating out of suburban Minneapolis, Dr. Bachmann runs a Christian counseling firm, co-owned with his wife Michelle, that at times, according to former patients, has tried to convert gay men into heterosexuals through Christian prayer. In an interview with a Christian radio outlet, Dr. Bachmann has described homosexuals as barbarians.
It is as if we have to understand barbarians need to be educated. They need to be disciplined. And just because someone feels it or thinks it doesn't mean that we're supposed to go down that road.
But when a Minneapolis paper claimed 5 years ago the Bachmann Clinic was trying to convert gays to straights, he called it a false statement. Now, undercover video shot just last month inside the clinic by a gay advocacy group, Truth Wins Out, seems to show some form of the practice is indeed offered to patients.
Yeah, you're in the midst of a storm, you know, you're in the midst of a battle.
The video was made by a member of the group, John Becker. Becker told the clinic of feelings towards men and depression and asked if he could be rid of his homosexual urges through therapy and prayer.
I think it's possibly totally real.
He could cure your homosexuality?
Yes.
Is that what he said?
Yes, he did. He said it several times. He said that change is possible. He's seen it. He believes that full change from homosexual to heterosexual is possible.
The truth is, God has designed our eyes to be attracted to the woman's body. Sure. To be attracted to, you know, everything. You know, to be attracted to her breast.
Each session began and ended with a prayer. The American Psychological Association has told members the idea of converting gays through therapy and prayer, called reparative therapy, is both ineffective and potentially harmful.
So they don't do gay conversion therapy, right? Obviously, they at least did it in that instance. Probably happened. Just a liar. Yeah, well. So where do we go from here? What's the positive note on this? What can you and I do to make change? Well, the best thing you can do is stay informed. And so there are a number of wonderful, very reliable websites out there. My favorite one run by this guy, Wayne Nezen. He's the guy who took the photograph, you know, of John Paul running down the street in Washington. So he's written a number of books, but truthwinsout.org is a wonderful place for you to get started, to keep yourself informed of what's going on, not only with gay conversion therapy, but in the gay community as well. Even though this one is actually about the Central Valley and it's run by folks in Fresno, my friend Kaylee Metcalf runs this website. She does an amazing job of keeping very well informed about national and international issues and putting it on her website. We have kind of an ugly URL, so I just put Google Gay Central Valley and you'll find this wonderful website to keep yourself informed. And also, one of my favorite organizations is PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. Go to pflag.org. This was actually started by a woman in Queens, New York, more than 4 years ago. She was a school teacher named Jean Manford, and she marched with her son in New York's Christopher Street Liberation Day parade, carrying a sign that said, "Parents of Gays United, support our children." It just started this huge movement that eventually manifested in this wonderful organization. We're lucky that we live in the Bay Area, in California, in the United States. That's a trifecta. You know, that's 3 wins right there. So if you look in California, you've got all kinds of PFLAGs that you can join up with. If you live elsewhere in the country, you might have to travel 100 miles to find one, if you're lucky enough to find one at all. It's especially true in the Midwest and in the South. So you should support the groups that are here, but also